Hello out there. Welcome to Family Read Aloud. We are finishing up our book today, Harbor Me by Jacqueline Woodson, published by Nancy Paulson Books, which is part of Penguin. Thank you for letting me share this book with you over this last week and a half. Let's just get to it, okay? Haley, who's the main narrator of the 6 kids, just finished telling her story to the other 5 in the art room. She'd been nervous to share her story about her dad being in prison and why he was in prison and what happened to her mom. So, picking up on chapter 35. I turned off the recorder and put it back into my knapsack. It was almost 3 o'clock, but just like most Fridays now, none of us moved. We'd started ignoring the time weeks ago. It was strange to remember that we'd come into this room confused about why we were here. Now we could barely remember a time when we weren't here. Hey, Amari said, since we all doing some sharing before we all bounce for the weekend, I want to show you something. He opened his drawing pad and we all leaned toward him. I've been copying some of these comic book guys, Amari said. I got some sweet characters. I'm going to put all of y'all in there too. It's going to be so tight. It's like my brain is frying with ideas. Amari had the biggest smile on his face that I'd ever seen, which made the rest of us smile and look through the comics. Even me and Holly went over to see what the 4 of them were getting all excited about. Some people try to hate on comics, but they get you inspired, Amari said. It's like, man, look at this guy. He opened a Black Panther comic, and the Black Panther was big and black and strong on the page. Outside the art room window, the schoolyard was bright and cold. The strange thing is I don't remember any other sound but Amari's voice. There must have been kids playing. There must have been yelling and laughter and horns blowing, but none of it comes back to me. Just Amari's smile, his comic books, us gathering around him. Like, what if the Black Panther was just a kid in this school, he said, just a regular kid? That's what I was thinking last night. Every comic book hero used to be a little kid in school once. So what if kids like us are the superheroes, right? The real superheroes? Amari was talking fast. The other boys were nodding as he turned the pages of the comic books. Like Esteban, Amari said. Who's the Dominican Superman? I mean, we got Miles Morales. He's the Puerto Rican Spider-Man, so we got Tiago covered. But Ashton, who's the superhero whose dad works at Key Foods? And for me, who's the guy who doesn't get to play with guns, so he has to find out another way to destroy? Amari looked at me. Haley, I got you too. Superhero girl who lives with her uncle. I got you too, Holly. Your richness is your superpower. I waited for Holly to get mad at Amari for calling her rich, but she didn't. She was even smiling a little. I'll take it, she said. Just hook me up with a nice cape. We must have headed out soon after that because I remember us all walking down the hall and out into the schoolyard together. We walked slowly, still talking. Chapter 36. What do you think your superpower would be? Holly asked me as we waited for Kira to pick us up after school. Someone had drawn a hopscotch game just outside the schoolyard fence, and she started jumping up the numbers, then turning and jumping back down them again. I had just been wondering that myself, wondering who the superhero is with a dad in prison. I don't know, I said. What about you? I'd want super focus, super be stillness. I'd want to sit like a statue for hours and hours and be like a sponge. Everything anyone said to me would get soaked right up, and I'd be the most brilliant person ever. But you're so smart already, Holly, even if you can't sit still. But imagine if I could. Then I'd be even smarter. I'd probably be graduating high school at 13. Then you wouldn't be in school with me, I said. Oh yeah, that's right. Then I think I'd want us to have the same superpower. Maybe I'd want to fly, I said. Me too, she said. That's easy. Everybody wants to fly. But what else? I thought about my dad. There was a room in my brain where I was mad at him. Some days I opened that door and it made me so sad that I just sat for hours staring off at nothing. Those were the days Mrs. Laverne and my uncle and even Holly left me alone. Those were the days filled with gray light and cold, damp air. That was the room where I realized I couldn't forgive him. I said slowly, I think I'd want to forget. Holly stopped jumping. Forget what? You know, about what happened between my mom and dad. I'd want to just imagine that I always had a dad, that I never had a mom. But you did have a mom. I know. You want to forget even the little tiny bit you know about her? Holly frowned, confused. It's not that. It's just I don't want to be sad and mad when I think about it all. I just want to think about the good stuff. Then you want forgiveness, not forgetness, Holly said. Forgiveness, I thought. I want forgiveness. Standing there, I realized I'd first have to forgive my father. Not forget, but forgive. Holly started hopscotching again just as Kira pulled up in the car. Chapter 37. Check this out, Amari said to us on Monday morning. We were in the schoolyard before class, and the day was surprisingly warm. Amari opened his book and slowly started turning the pages. We all leaned in over the pictures. And there we were, on every single page. Tiago shooting webs from his hands over buildings and vans and cars. Esteban flying over an ocean, and far down below him the same tiny man over and over again with a t-shirt on that said Poppy. Holly was Catwoman in a fancy building, her sneakers almost bigger than the rest of her, and we all laughed. When Amari turned the page again, there I was, my hair, a mass of curly red wires that seemed to be shooting electricity. That's tight, Ashton said. It's like I've always had my superpower with me, I said. I was born with red hair. Yep, Amari looked up at me and smiled. That's the cool thing. There's all kinds of ways to get your superpower. You take somebody like Superman, who was born with his superpower, and somebody like Spider-Man. The way he got his power was kind of tragic, right? Then it becomes this good thing. That's what's up. That night, as I waited for my uncle to come say goodnight, I thought about Amari's drawing of me, about the brilliance of my hair, the superpower in it. And I thought about my mother and father. Tragedy is strange. It takes away and it gives too. I couldn't ever imagine a life without my uncle, his laughing, his stories, the way he looks at the world. But until I saw Amari's drawing, I hadn't really thought about my hair. The power is both my mom and dad running through it, through me, and their moms and dads, and theirs, the A and B of me. C and D, as Holly said. I smiled. My mother was gone, but she was continuing too, inside of me. And that was its own superpower. You ready? My uncle said. He stood in the doorway, holding his guitar. Before my father went to prison, they played music together, my father on the piano, my uncle on the guitar. Lame songs about mountains and clouds and rainbows, my uncle said. But then when my father went away, my uncle started writing his own music, telling stories in his songs. Sometimes he played them for me. I liked falling asleep to the quiet hum of his guitar and his soft voice, the notes trembling. My uncle had lived through it all, the car accident, my father being taken away, him suddenly being not just my uncle, but my mom and dad too. He was my superhero. Yeah, I said. I wanted to tell him about the day, but instead I pulled the covers up over me and smiled. My uncle sat in the small chair at the foot of my bed and started strumming his guitar. Chapter 38. When we came back to school after Easter break, Esteban was gone. Where? We asked Miss Laverne. Home to the Dominican Republic. The family left on Sunday. But he didn't tell us, we said. He didn't know, Miss Laverne said. She said, I'm sorry. She said, let's just do what we want today. She said, I know you will all miss him terribly. Amari looked at his drawings. Tiago put his head down on his desk. After a while, I could hear quiet sobbing. Ashton stared out the window. The sun was so bright. The building seemed sharp enough to cut someone. Holly got up and walked around the classroom, pulling books off the shelves and then putting them back. After a few minutes, she went back to her seat, took out her knitting, then put it back. Then took it out again and started knitting, the needles clicking and scraping against each other. I took out the recorder, turned the volume down low, and played the last poem Esteban had read to us, his sweet voice filling the classroom. And when his missing feels like it's going to break him into pieces, tell him it won't. Tell him that he is made of the iron of grandfathers and grandmothers and their grandfathers and grandmothers, people who were human and worked hard and had dreams. Tell him to hold on to his dreams because his abuela and abuelo still believe in the power of dreams. Tell him he is their dream. And he is my dream. And he is the dream come true of the ancestors. We are all the dream come true of the people who came before us. And when he asks, tell him I'm fine. Tell him I'm free. Tell him the mountains go on, and where they stop, Pico Duarte's peak points up like lips, telling God a story. Maybe this mountain sings of promises and families broken. Maybe it holds inside it a beautifully remembered dream. Tell him to hold inside himself all good memories, hugs, friends, laughter. Tomorrow holds no promises, but now is not the time for tears. Chapter 39. In June, just before the school year ended, we met in the art room one last time. Amari said, I'm going to miss you guys. Me too, Tiago said. Me too, Ashton said. You guys are awesome. There was air in the room where Esteban's me too would have been. We had left his desk where it was, left the pillow he sat on in the window, and it felt like a ghost in the room. Like he was still with us, telling us about his poppy, baseball season, poetry. Me too, I said, looking at his empty seat. I hoped he was in the Dominican Republic. I hoped that he and his poppy were catching baseballs and swimming in the ocean. I hoped that the family was together and safe and happy. Holly looked around at us. Just the summer, people. We'll be back together in September. It's not like it's forever. True, Ashton said, but it won't be like this. We won't be with you and Haley. It won't be the art room. Yeah, Mari said, but don't forget our promise. Every day gets us closer to 20 years from now, right? Yep, Holly said, when we all meet back here all old and gray and wobbly. I'm not going to be old and wobbly, Mari said. Maybe you will be, but not me. You already are old and wobbly, Holly said. We laughed, even Amari. Remember how scared we were the first time Miss Laverne brought us here, Holly said. Yeah, I hated this room, Amari said. It was like depressing, that one sad picture hanging on the closet. We looked at the kid's picture of the sun. It was as familiar as time now, something we saw but didn't see. It was beautiful. And a lot of us didn't know each other, Tiago said. We all just were like, what's this thing? And it was us, I said. That thing that we were so scared of was just us together. Yep, Tiago said. He smiled at me, his glasses glinting. Beneath them, I noticed how pretty his eyes were. Isn't that crazy? And Esteban, Ashton said softly. Esteban was here. Never going to forget Esteban. We all got quiet. Some part of him is still here, Holly said. Yeah, Mari said, that's true. Yeah, the rest of us said. We still have his voice and his dad's poetry, I said. He left that for us to keep forever. Amari opened his drawing pad and flipped through the pages until he came to a brightly colored picture. That's us, he said, and that's a harbor. He carefully tore the drawing from his book. Then, without saying anything, he walked over to the picture of the sun, pulled one of the thumbtacks from it, and hung his picture beside it. We all stared at it. It was us. And like the picture of the sun, it too was beautiful. Chapter 40. The light has shifted now, and the ailanthus tree has turned to a shadow in the dusk. I turn the recorder off and sit on my bed. I can hear the soft swish of the ceiling fan in the hallway. Outside, little kids on the block are playing a game of tag, yelling, "Not it! Not it!" Then a woman's voice breaks through, calling someone home to dinner. I uncurl my legs from beneath me and head for the stairs. But at the top of the stairs I stop and sit, watching my father at the piano as he lifts his fingers from the keys and presses them down again. His fingers are long and white and delicate. I'd never really looked at his hands, but as they move over the piano keys, lifting such sweet music out of them, I want to run down and hug him. I want to tell him about my year in the art room, about everything he missed in the many years he was in prison. I want to ask him if he had great friends when he was my age, friends he promised to meet up with again in 20 years. But I stare at his back as he plays. He is somewhere else. He is with my mother in another dream. A dream of a place before this place, a time before this time, a story before this story. Soon my uncle will be finished packing and will come down to join him on his guitar. Maybe they'll ask me to sing and my voice will be high and off key and they'll laugh about how the musical gene skipped right over me. When I was in 5th grade, I didn't know how fast time could move, how you could wake up one day and so much around you had changed forever. I didn't know that one day we'd have a teacher who would say, "Take your books, you won't be coming back here today." And that we walk out of the lives we'd always known, our faces turned toward her, so many questions and so much fear. "Daddy," I say. My father turns from the piano and looks up at me. "Play Summertime." My father looks confused for a minute, and then his face softens into something warm and familiar. Something I knew a lifetime ago when I was a tiny girl getting tossed into the air by him, laughing and screaming, both afraid and thrilled. When I was in 5th grade, I didn't know the unfamiliar would be beautiful and funny and heartbreaking and hard. That it would be Amari calling me red and the glint coming off of Tiago's glasses. That it would be Esteban in the window, a silhouette with the sun coming in around him. That it would be poems and pictures and questions and answers. I head down the stairs and sit on the bench beside my father. His fingers are long and pale and stretched out across the keys. He smiles, bends, and kisses the top of my head, the first notes of summertime rising from the piano. I dreamed this moment 1,000 times, he says. I didn't know it would be people you barely knew becoming friends that harbored you. And dreams you didn't even know you had coming true. I didn't know it would be superpowers rising up out of tragedies and perfect moments in a nearly empty classroom. Me too, I say. And when I rest my head against his arm, when the music circles around us, when my uncle stops packing and joins in with his guitar and we pick up the song as if we'd always been singing it, what I know for sure now is that this is the end of one of many stories, and also a beginning. That's the end of our book, Harbor Me by Jacqueline Woodson. I hope it gave you something to think about. I hope it made a difference to you. Hope you were able to really hear it. Because it's definitely one that I'm going to continue reading throughout my life. It's one of my favorites. Okay. Have a good night.